Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do a walk-around review of the Toro PowerMax e26 HA. This is Toro's electric snowblower. They also make this in a 24-inch size. The 24-inch size does not have the auto steer and the heated hand grips. And yes, this is in my living room. It's 19 degrees outside today. It's cold and windy and my garage is just cold. Let's put it that way. So yeah, it's in my living room. Why? Because I can. All right, so let's get started.
Down in the dirt. Been real bad.
All right, to start with, this snowblower is unique in the electric snowblower market. Why? Because all this snowblower is a Toro PowerMax 826 with the engine replaced with an electric power unit. Everything else about this snowblower is the same as the gas unit. Why did Toro do this? Well, it's pretty simple. This is Toro's most popular snowblower, the 26-inch, and it's been a very, very good snowblower over the years. It's very dependable. It does the job for most people. If you get 30 to 60 inches of snow a year, you've got your normal suburban driveway, 2 cars wide, 70, 80 foot long. This has been one of the best snowblowers out there on the market. It can handle any type of snow, from the light fluffy stuff to the really heavy wet snow. It'll handle a snow berm made by the snowplow without any problems at all. It's not a lightweight unit. It is what we call a mid-weight. In other words, it's not a lightweight compact unit. It's not lightweight like the other electric snowblowers on the market. It's heavy enough to have traction to push through 8, 10, 12 inches of snow without any issues. Let's take a look at some of the features of the snowblower itself, and then we'll look at the engine, and then we're going to take a look at the inside of the transmission. And something special for you, we actually get to run the transmission. So what I'm saying is that the dash is the same, the controls are the same. Toro uses this poly dash, but this poly dash is reinforced with a metal brace back here on the back. I've never had anybody complain about this metal dash cracking. It's been around a long, long time. There are metal parts to it. In other words, like the gear shift selector runs in metal, not plastic teeth. The quick chute is Toro's standard quick chute. It just works. Works very well. It's a little faster than what some people realize. And it takes you just a little bit to get used to it. Once you do, this is really a nice chute. They use poly handles, and the poly handles are nice and wide so that they're easy to grip. They're nice and comfortable, so you can use this for a long time. It uses their high output LED light. It has hand warmers. The handles themselves are nice and strong. I'll go into details of them later. I'm going to call this the 826 frame, even though this is an E26 snowblower. The 826 frame is unique among snow throwers. The impeller and the transmission case are all one unit on this. The frame comes all the way out to the sides of the housing. It's all welded. Everything is welded up nice and solid. It's a very solid unit. You'll never have any problems with the auger housing warping on you or getting out of adjustment or anything like that. This just works very good. Uses the same tires as you would find on the 826. They're the deep lug snow tread tires, metal rims. Toro uses a clinch pin here to hold the wheels on, so the wheels are very easy to take off in case you ever get a flat. You need to have it worked on. They don't rust onto the axle like a lot of the other units do. Standard steel skid shoes. These are heavier than what you see on most of the other manufacturers. They're probably 1/8 inch steel, reversible, and you can get the poly ones for this too if you're working on patio pavers or you don't want those rust marks on your sidewalks and your cement driveway. Toro uses a system called ACS, or anti-clog system, and I'll go into more detail on that when I talk about the front end. But basically what happens with these Toros is if you get too much snow into the snowblower, it actually offloads, which keeps your RPM up on your impeller. So your impeller always throws the snow as far as possible. It doesn't bog down. This works really, really well if you got really wet snow you're dealing with. Toro went to a hanging chute years ago. So the chute itself is hanging off of this bracket up top. So you don't have any wear parts down here. You don't have any teeth to break like you do on some of the poly chutes. Also, it just doesn't wear, and you have very, very few problems with chutes of this type. Toro chute control is the quick stick up here. It's a nice solid metal rod. They actually use this rod on all their machines, so you know it's built to last. And they use a cable for the deflector, and it's a sheathed cable, so it works really well. The deflector is spring loaded, so wherever you set it, it's going to be easy to push down so you can get close to you, or it's going to open up very easily. And there's no stickiness to these at all. All right, let's talk about the engine. Before I actually talk about the engine, I'm going to remove the belt cover here, so that way we can talk about how this whole thing operates. So I'll see you in a second. So why did Toro go this route instead of redesigning a completely new snowblower with electric motors in it? Well, first off, it makes sense that if you have a really good snowblower, the best thing to do is to create an electric power unit that runs it. And that's what Toro did. Toro took the 826, took the engine off of it, and replaced it with this electric power unit. So this power unit is an engine. It has your fuel tanks, which are your batteries, and your speed control, and your electric start and everything. It's all in one unit. So just like the gas-powered unit, which has the throttle on it, the gas tank on it, so on and so forth, it's just a replacement. In fact, even the connectors down here, in other words, the pulleys and the belts and the shaft, all this stuff is exactly the same parts as you would find on your gas unit. So Toro uses a split belt or split pulley system, so they're easy to work on. This is actually two pieces. This is actually two pieces. So if you need to change belts, you can pull this belt keeper off and then loosen this all up so the belts are easy to change for you. Toro doesn't recommend that you change your own belts. They recommend that you take it to a dealer. All right, so let's take a look at the power unit. I don't have the exact kVA or size of the motor in here, but I had a chance to use a proof design of this about a year and a half ago. It was almost ready for production, and so I got to see how well it threw snow and stuff like that. And this power unit does throw snow just as well as the 8 horsepower unit. This uses a brushless motor, so it works, as far as the snowblower goes, it works the same as a gas unit. For example, if you're blowing snow and you come up to a heavier piece of a deeper drift or something like that, the governor on the gas unit will start to pick up, and so that the engine can maintain a constant speed. The brushless motor systems and controllers do the same thing here. If you come up to a heavier drift, the control unit, the control module, automatically sends more current to the motor so that it can maintain its speed. And it will continue to do that until it overloads. And when that happens on this unit, the motor will stop and it'll go beep beep. On a gas unit, the same thing happens. It'll continue to put more power to it. The motor will start to lug down and finally just run out of power and stop. Same type of principle. And the way these brushless systems are set up, that's the way they work. You don't notice that on your brushless drill or impact driver as much as you do on these powered units like your mowers and your snow throwers and stuff like that. So you go to fill up your gas tank on your gas powered unit. With the electric power here, you do the same thing. You just put batteries in them. On this one, you can run it with one 5 amp hour battery or larger, or up to 3 10 amp batteries. The ones I'm putting in here right now happen to be 7.5 amp hour. You can buy this snowblower without batteries. You can buy it with 2 6 amp hour batteries and 2 7.5 amp hour batteries currently. Then there's a third slot here. You can buy an additional battery, or if you got batteries already, talking to one guy, he bought it with 2 6 amp hour batteries because he already had 2 6 amp hour batteries for his mower. I have always bought the largest battery I can, so this unit here came with 2 7.5 amp hour batteries, and I have 2 more that I've used on the other stuff. So one thing nice about this battery setup is this battery, you can get a 3.5, a 6, a 7.5, and now they just introduced a 10 amp hour, and those batteries are run over, I think it's 130 different tools nowadays. And these batteries, for example, when you buy the snowblower, it comes with a 2 amp charger, and say the 6 amp hour battery, it'll take you about an hour to charge them. 7.5 amp hour battery takes about an hour and 20 minutes. You can buy a 5 amp quick charger, so you can cut that time in half for charging these batteries. Toro just introduced a commercial line of these batteries for the commercial operators, and they also make them in the 3.5 and the 7.5 and the 10 amp, and those charge in 15 minutes. They'll charge up to 80% in 15 minutes. So, of course, they're going to be more expensive, and they won't be available till next year, but I can't wait to get my hands on them either. So each of these batteries has its own power indicator. Push a button here and you can see what the charge is on them. That one is full. I think this one is 3/4. Yeah, I've used this one a little bit. You can run this on one battery if you didn't hear me say that before. Also, when you take and turn the unit on, there's a stop position on the switch, an accessory position, and a start or run position. So let's turn it to the accessory. And that battery's not showing up. There it goes. And that battery needs to be charged. Okay. You don't have to open up and look at each individual cell to see each individual battery to see what your life is. It's automatically transfers over here to the dash so you can see what each battery has charged. It does run at a set speed, just like your typical gas-powered machine. You always want to run your gas-powered machines. That light is bright. I'm going to tip it down so we don't see it. There we go. There, now we can see better. What was I saying? Just like you want to run your gas engine as fast as possible so that the machine handles your snow best, these systems also work the same way. They run at a constant speed. And they also have an eco mode, which reduces the power, or reduces the RPMs about 20%. So if you're running 2 to 4 inches and you don't care how far you're throwing your snow, you can press this button. So turn it to aux, set it up, turn it on, press this, and you can see that here that it slows down a little. Auger impeller, and you can see this whole system when it's working. So why is this system better than what's on the market right now? The Eagle and the Greenworks Pro. I don't know if DR Power has one left or not. So Eagle, Greenworks, I think Snow Joe still has their 2-stage. What makes this better? Number one, the transmission case. This is all metal. Everything is metal inside of it. With the other units, the motors, the drive motor for the wheels and the separate drive motor for the impeller are all down inside that case. They're not sealed. They can't be sealed because they need the airflow to keep the motors cool when you're running. And all the electronics is down there. All the wiring is down there. The Greenworks does use a metal transmission case with a plastic cover underneath. The Eagle, as far as I can see, is all plastic. So I bet if I had a chance to open one up, take the cover off the transmission case, you'd find out that it's all plastic inside, and probably even the gears are poly. This one's going to last. This one is going to last just as long as that gas-powered Power Max that your neighbor has, just because of the way it's built. Also with this one, all these engines have heat buildup, and you can either use a fan and venting to take care of most of it, or you can use heat sinks. Toro's system, this is heat sink, this is heat sink, and this is heat sink. Plus there is it sounds like there's a fan in there, because if you look on the back side of this module, there's some vent holes too. So you're going to have excellent heat dissipation, just like you do with your air-cooled motor on your gas machine. So this engine's this electric motor, this brushless motor, is going to do its best, so you don't have any thermal problems. Let's look in the battery compartment again. Pull a battery. This is the same connector that you find in all your other 60 volt Toro units. Push button here releases it. It snaps in place. It locks in place nice and tight. If you notice, I didn't push this one down all the way, is why it didn't show. So you push it in, and then you push it until this locks. Hear that extra click? And again, there's room for 3. How long do these last? That's always the big question. Well, 3 7.5 amp hour batteries doing your normal driveway will run 45 minutes and longer, depending on how deep your snow is. That's about the same length that a tank of fuel runs on your gas-powered e26. The 6 amp hours are going to run less. I typically say 15 minutes or so per battery with the 7.5 amp hour. If you're in lighter snow, you can get 20 minutes or longer out of them. With the 6 amp hour battery, you're probably 20% less. So if you have 2, you're going to have about 20 minutes run time. 20 minutes of run time is probably all you need to clear a 2-car driveway that's 60 foot long and a snow berm, if you keep at it. If you add a third one, then you're up to longer run time. And when the 10 amp hour batteries come out next year, we should be able to get well over an hour, probably closer to an hour and 20 minutes run time. Batteries are expensive, but batteries replace your fuel, they replace your spark plug, they replace your oil change, all that type of stuff. The rest of this machine is going to have your normal maintenance. In other words, on a Toro, probably once every 10 years you need to change these belts. Every 15 years or longer you need to change the friction plate, not friction plate, the friction wheel. Other than that, these just don't give you any problems. One thing I do like about this system with Toro is Toro's a big company. I expect them to keep this battery style for many years, and say 10 years down the road you can probably you'll still be able to get replacement batteries for them if you have any issues with these. This battery right here, by the way, is going on 4 years old, and I've had no issues with it at all. And it gets used all the time. Mows the lawn, mows a 1/4 acre lawn every week. My brother never has any problems with it not having enough battery life to mow that lawn. So it's a different train of thought than the other brands right now. The other brands are putting speed controls for the auger and the impeller. They're putting electronic controls for the drive units. They're putting variable light switches, all sorts of stuff. And that's cool. In other words, just like your phone, more features makes it a better phone, right? Now, when it comes to mechanical devices like this, the simpler you can keep them, the longer they're going to last. And that's why I'm saying right now that this Toro PowerMax e26 HA is probably one of the best snowblowers on the market. Not only is it built to last, it's easy to work on. Anybody can work on it. You can go down to your Toro dealer and get parts if you want. You can order the parts directly off of the Toro.com. You can do just about all the work yourself. There's enough videos out there to show you how to do just about any maintenance task on this machine. It's going to last because it's mostly metal. This poly anti-clog system down here has been around for a long time. It doesn't wear out. If it ever did wear out on you, it's about $90 to replace that whole piece. Toro did put a metal chute on this snowblower a couple years ago because that's what you guys wanted. You want as much metal as possible. So they replaced the poly chute that they've used for years with this metal one. They did that across the line. All the machines now have metal chutes on them. The poly dash up top and the quick stick, those have also been around for a long time, probably 15 years or so. And I really don't hear of anybody breaking these, unless you do something stupid like drop it out of the back of your pickup truck. They did revise the quick stick 2 years ago. So this quick stick has more metal inside of it, so it doesn't have the problems some of the earlier versions had. Again, this is the same as the gas-powered unit. So all of your parts for your machine, except the electric control module and with the motor in it, all of the parts are exactly the same as what you would find on a gas unit. So if you ever do have anything break, it's really simple. You just go to your dealer and they probably have it in stock. Toro does not use shear pins on their front auger system. There are 2 bolts here and here that hold the auger flights onto the shaft, but those are not shear pins. Those are actual bolts. Their transmission case and the internal components of this transmission right here are strong enough that they don't break. They just don't break. So if you get something in here like a frozen newspaper or a rock or a strut off of a car, trust me, I've had that done. Instead of busting these shear pins, it just stops the unit. If it was gas powered, it would kill the engine. With this one, there's an overload that everything stops. And all you have to do is come in and remove your obstruction and you're back running again. Toro uses an open flight auger system. So these augers have teeth on them that chew the snow up as it's putting it into the machine. And being an open flight, it aerates the snow. So the snow stays lighter and more consistent. So it goes into the impeller easier and gets thrown out easier. Toro also includes these little breakers. And what that is if you're running in real heavy sticky snow, these breakers keep the augers from clogging up with snow. Regular scraper bar, same one that you find on the gas powered units. Again, everything is the same. It's not reversible, but if you set your skid shoes right, so you have about 1/8 of an inch clearance under this when you're doing cement, or 3/8 to 1/2 inch when you're doing gravel. You'll never wear these out anyway. Okay, looking down into these impellers is always kind of hard to see, but Toro uses a 3-paddle impeller. The paddles are nice and wide in here, so they pick up a lot of snow. They're cupped on the end, and then they're also reinforced on the back, so even if you get a rock in here, you're not going to bend your paddle up and throw everything off. If you bend a paddle like that on some of the other units, they'll start to vibrate on you, so on and so forth. Now, this system is smaller than what some of the others snowblowers that you're going to look at are. In other words, the auger and the impeller are 10-inch. Other brands use a 12-inch auger and a 12-inch impeller. This one is 10-inch. But it still handles just as much snow as the 12-inch impellers. Why? Because this machine doesn't try to throw all the snow out of the unit the way those other ones do. If you get too much snow into the impeller area and it starts to bog down, it actually will throw snow back out here to try and throw it a second time. What that allows the machine to do is the impeller speed stays higher on this, so it throws better and you don't clog. And if you're throwing slush, it throws the slush out instead of just dribbling it off the side of the chute. So this system works very, very well, and in this price range, this is the best system on the market right at the moment. It does have 2 bolts back here, again, that hold the impeller on. These bolts are not shear pins. One of the big problems with some of the other brands is they use shear pins in here. They use 1 or 2 or 3 shear pins out here on the auger assembly, and then they'll use shear pins in the back here and on those 3-stage units with the impeller sitting out here also, or the snow, whatever you call it. There's shear pins on that too, and they break. On a normal machine, I would normally say if you're throwing snow and the front of the snowblower wants to ride up, stop and check your shear pins, because you probably got a broken one. On this one, if the machine wants to start riding up on you, you're just trying to put too much snow through it. So just go ahead and back off a gear, and it'll work a lot better for you. So these do handle a lot of snow compared to, for their size. You would think that the 10-inch would be much less productive than a 12-inch, but that's not true. Now, this is not a heavy-duty unit. The heavy-duty snowblowers, like the Toro PowerMax HD, they use a 14-inch impeller and a 14-inch auger. You can move a lot more snow a lot faster. But for most people, most of us who have that, typical suburban driveway, and we live in Chicago or Des Moines or Pittsburgh, New York City, Long Island, anywhere basically along Interstate 80, these are just a really good choice for a snowblower. Okay, any questions on the front end? Let's move on. You just go ahead and tip the machine up into the maintenance mode like you normally would. And the first thing that you see when you tip it up is this large poly cover. I'm going to show you in a minute why this is poly and not steel. In the poly cover, there's 2 drain holes. In other words, like any normal transmission on a snowblower, these are not sealed up tight. To remove this cover, there's 2 3/8-inch bolts here and 1 on each side over here. By the way, You can easily take your wheels off of these if you want. There's just a snap pin. Lift it up, pull it out, and it comes right off. If you want to have the wheels off when you're looking in here, that's fine. So let me take these 4 bolts off and let's take a look inside. For you viewers who play the Where's Willow game, she's still around. She's now over 17 years old. She's getting a little arthritis. She's not near as agile as she used to be, and I have problems keeping her weight up. She doesn't like to eat much anymore, so I don't know. She's been acting up on me for a few years now like this, but she just keeps moving along. So let's see if she'll make 18 years. So there's Willow. While I got this machine up in the service position, let's take a look at a couple things. First off, let's look at the cables and the controls. Toro uses a nice coated cable that's crimped in 2 places here. So, and it's got a little bead, a little weld to make this crimp nice and strong. I guess it's not a weld, it's a piece of flexible metal. I want to say lead, but I'm sure it's not lead anymore. So on the bottom here, there's a spot where you can put a pliers on here, a wrench on here to hold this. If you ever want to adjust this cable, you just loosen this and then you spin this part of it to make it tighter or looser. If you notice it has a little slop in it, that's normal. When you get it out of the box, it's going to flop just a little bit. When you push down on the handle to make it go, it tightens up right away. And then the further you pull it, this spring will expand and this lever here will move. Doesn't have to move very far. If you see, it's only moving the rod that goes down to the friction plate is only moving about a quarter to 3/8 of an inch, because your handle is actually moving about three inches up here. The tip of it, this moves and then the spring expands. And if everything is correct, when you have your handle all the way down, the spring expands about 3/8 of an inch. See how it gets longer? About 3/8 of an inch. So that's the proper tension on this machine. Same way over here on the impeller cable. Again, it's a little bit loose. As soon as you move your handle a little bit, it starts to move the pulley, the tightener on the impeller belt, and release that brake on the impeller pulley. So this will come up, and then this will also expand about a quarter to 3/8 of an inch. I like to have these set over here about a quarter of an inch instead of a longer 3/8, because that way there's less tension on your hand, and your hand stays more comfortable when you're using this for a long time. So again, we're talking about the electric unit, but the gas powered units are the same way. You set these up, all these cables and everything are exactly the same as you would find on your gas unit. This is the rod for the transmission, and this moves the friction wheel down below back and forth depending on what gear you have it in. It doesn't want to go into reverse, or if it doesn't want to go into the first gear forward, there is an adjustment up. There is an adjustment up here. Just pull this cotter pin, turn this nut 1 or 2 turns, and try it again. We talked about this when we did the assembly. Take a look at some more of the components here. Just like on the gas powered, there is a wiring harness on it. Wiring harness plugs in down here. The wiring harness is for the light and for the heated hand grips. Let's come up and look at the controls way up here on the top. Toro uses a combination of poly and metal for all this stuff. You have a metal shaft running through here with your springs, your release springs for your handles. It has a metal interlocking switch on it. It's not plastic. I guess while I'm here, let's talk about the handles just a little bit. The handle is all nice, probably 1 inch, maybe 1 1/8 inch tubing. 4 bolts hold the top piece onto the bottom bracket. The bottom bracket is not just pressed into a flat spot the way they used to be. This one now is welded into this bracket, and this bracket is bolted to the transmissions. All right, moving on. All right, so let's take the cover off. There's your transmission. Nice and simple. The 826 transmission is identical to most other transmissions. You have your friction wheel, you have your friction plate, you have your impeller pulley, and the controls to run the belt. You have your auto differential here, your automatic steering. It's pretty simple. I'll go through each component here in a second. With most snowblowers made in the US, there's a lot of metal in them. And one of the typical features is that the transmission case is separate from the auger housing. On the 826, the transmission case and the auger housing are all one unit. With a regular transmission, like you'd find on the larger Toros or Aaron's or Cub Cadets, the metal plate that covers this all is structurally part of the case. So once you bolt it up, it makes everything nice and stiff. With this snowblower, they don't do that. The frame comes all the way down, all around. It's welded to the front auger housing. It's welded to the back of the impeller, and it's welded up here to this panel. So you don't need that piece of metal in there structurally holding everything together. If you look, it's got a stamped ridge or edge on it all the way through to give it extra stiffness. This snowblower won't ever get out of adjustment on you. With other snowblowers, if you hit them hard enough, sometimes the auger housing will tilt a little bit compared to the rest of the machine. You'll have to unbolt the connecting bolts between the auger housing and the transmission case to realign it again. This one, you never have any problems like that. It's just made to be as strong as possible. They've had this design for quite a while, so it's not anything new, but you've probably never paid any attention to it. Having this poly cover on here, all it is doing is protecting this a little bit from the environment. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's a big piece of poly, and most of the time we complain that poly is not good, but in this case that poly cover doesn't have any use other than to cover these parts up. So Toro's nameplate has the model number and serial number, and it also has a QR code. If you scan that QR code, the parts diagrams and operator's manual and all that stuff pop right up on your phone. So that's convenient. That way you don't have to go find your operator's manual if you have a question about it. And if you want to order parts, it's real simple. You just scan that and the parts diagrams will also pop up. All right, let's look at the different parts. Up here you have 3 controls. The right hand one is for the impeller, the center is for the speed control, and the left one is for the clutch. So looking down inside, this rod that's connected to the clutch goes down to this friction wheel. The shifter goes to this rubber wheel and it slides back and forth across. And then this other lever goes down to release the brake on the impeller and start the impeller. So I'm going to do something that I've never been able to do before. We're going to turn these using a motor. So let's start it up. Now I've got it in gear, and you can see that this friction plate here is spinning. That's connected directly to the motor. When I go to engage the clutch, this wheel will start to spin, which spins the wheels. Here we go. And I've got it in first gear. And you can see that with the auto steer, you take in hold one wheel, basically when you're turning. You have to make it run slower, faster, even back up. And it doesn't like doing this on its side, but that's okay. Now, when I want to spin, or when I change speed or go in reverse, all I have to do is move this lever here, which changes the pull. And I do that. Back to the first gear. Now this is a brand new unit, so that wheel's going to squeak a little bit. Motor starts up. That's reverse. All I have to do is grab a wheel and it stops. The other side does the same thing. There, now it starts to not like this wheel anymore. Just a brand new piece of rubber on a brand new friction plate. Okay? That is cool. Now you can see how your other snowblowers work the same way. I'm not going to run the impeller and the auger sitting like this because I've got it sitting on carpet and I'm afraid that the teeth on the auger are going to catch and just make a mess. So let's not do that. Looking at these, this is a typical transmission. You know, we've looked at the inside of the other transmissions. You have, like I said, you have your friction plate here. This is nice and smooth when it's brand new. These are plated, but over time you may see some surface rust that eventually will turn into a patina. And it takes a few years for it to turn into a nice brown color. But this shaft here, for example, if you look at this next year after you've used it all winter, you'll see some surface rust on here. You look it doesn't hurt anything. If you look at it again in 5 years, it'll be nice and brown. Why don't they coat it? Well, because that patina, that coating of rust on there, actually protects the metal. Take a look at any railroad truss bridge, the one with the framework up on top. You'll see that most of those, just about all of them, have never been painted, and they turn that nice brown color. Most of those bridges are getting close to 100 years old, and we've never had any problems with them rusting out. So that kind of a principle. One thing that's different on the Toro 826 series or the 26 series is the auto turn. I'm going to call it an auto turn. It's actually a General Transmission's DI200 auto locking differential. That's this piece here. The way this machine is set up, if you take a look at my other videos, like with the Aaron's or with the Toro 828, there's another shaft with a gear and a chain in it here. What that does is that reduces the speed of the engine down to your walking pace. Well, on this one they do it a little bit differently. Number one, this friction wheel here is a little larger than your typical one. So that spinning on here gives you a little bit better gear reduction. Then they have a very small gear here driving a real large gear that's on the differential. It's a little bit different than what you see if you open up a PowerMax HD or a Deluxe 28, Aaron's Deluxe 28 or Platinum, those machines. This one is all poly, and since this is what we consider a medium duty snowblower, it's not, some places will call this a compact, but I call this a medium duty snowblower because it is built heavier than the light duty stuff. Like most of the 24-inch snowblowers on the market, this one, it has better features. Just overall, generally, it's built a little bit better. Toro uses the DI200 differential on the medium duty machines. They also have this in a smaller toothed unit. In other words, it's only about this big around, that you'll see in the Snowmaster. The Snowmaster also uses a auto steering differential in it. Your larger machines like the 828 and the Deluxe 28, and those, they have a gear that's right here because they have that extra gear reduction shaft, set of gears or set of chains in here. Your commercial units, the big commercial units that use the auto steer or auto turn, depends on what word you want to use, that differential is a DI500 differential, and it's much bigger than this, and it's all metal, and it also has a 1-inch shaft that it works off of. So your bigger snowblowers, a lot more weight there, so they use a 1-inch axle. Your heavy duty snowblowers like the PowerMax HD, though, they use a 3/4 inch axle, but then they use that DI300 transmission. Your medium duty transmissions like this one, they still use a 3/4 inch axle, but they use the less expensive DI200. Are you going to have any problems with it? I don't expect to. If you ever do have a problem with the auto turn and it needs to be replaced, they're not that expensive to replace. They run right around $100. So in today's world, that's not a lot of money compared to everything else going on. So While I'm in here, like we've talked about with all the other snowblowers, you really don't need to grease anything in here. From the factory, they put a little grease on this wheel here and on that gear, and it's not so much for lubrication as it is just to quiet it down when it's new, when it works into itself. This shaft down here, every couple years or so, you can take the bottom plate off and you can wipe some axle grease on here, and that'll, especially if your gear shifter, you feel your gear shifter is shifting harder or stiffer, then just wipe some axle grease on this hex shaft. Be careful not to drip any grease down on this flywheel when you're doing it, because the friction, the rubber wheel here comes in contact, friction, which runs your machine. If you got grease on there, then it'll slip a little bit on you until you get that grease off. This carrier here, that's the bracket that holds the friction plate, so when you move it up to engage it, this is all nice and solid. This spring here is for the brake. If you notice, it's a real heavy duty spring. Sealed ball bearings for this carrier that moves your friction wheel back and forth. Like I said, this transmission is the same as what you would find on the gas units. So all of your parts are available if you ever need them. They're available all the time. Nothing special about it, meaning you don't have any parts that are unique just because it's an electric unit. I really kind of like this because I know that this snowblower parts are going to be available for it just as long as parts are going to be available for the gas units. Any questions? All right, let's move on. All right, let's quickly look at the controls. Normal drive system on this. In other words, same as your gas Toro, same as your gas Aaron's. This control over here handles your wheels. This control over here handles controls your auger and impeller. One thing that I see new this year is they have an interlock on this so that you just can't accidentally start up the front auger. So all you do is take your hand, your gloves, you can do this with your gloved hand, just push this down and then push it down. So it does have the interlocks so that you can take your right hand off and reach over, control your chute, your deflector, turn your hand warmers on and off, and control your speed. Theoretically, you can change your speed on the go, but I don't always recommend that you do that. Just go ahead and stop and move your shifter to a different gear. And if you notice, the interlock popped when I stopped. These do have 6 speeds forward, 2 in reverse, just like your gas-powered unit. So, like I keep telling you, this thing is a gas-powered unit with an electric control module on it. I think I want to start calling it the electric engine, because it's got the fuel, which is the batteries. It's got the motor, which is the electric motor down inside. Everything's all in one unit, just like the gas-powered units are. So, can I do that? Can I call it the electric engine? Let me know in the comments. I can't think of anything else to cover on this. What did I miss? We talked about the chute, we talked about the tires, talked about the transmission. We looked inside the transmission. We got to actually run the transmission so you can see how it works. We talked about the pulleys and V-belts. They're exactly the same as you would find on the gas unit. Heavy duty handles, super bright LED light, heated hand grips. Talked about the ACS control, how it works. Talked about the front auger, no shear pins, open flight auger, good skid shoes. You can put the poly skid shoes on it, so on and so forth. I can highly recommend this snowblower if you want an electric unit. Yeah, they're expensive. You're paying for your batteries with this unit, and basically what you're paying for is, even if these only last 5 years, the batteries, I expect these batteries to last me 10 years. But even if they only last 5 years, you're paying for that. You normally would pay that amount of money for fuel and maintenance. Plus just the fact of not having to have a gas can, not having to run to the gas station, not having to find E10 fuel or less. Straight regular fuel is getting harder and harder to find. This is definitely something to look at if this is a good machine for you size wise. So, all right, hopefully it's going to snow here soon, and when it snows we'll get this out and show you how well it works. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave it in the comments section below. If you like this video, please like it. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Down in the dirt.